someone that might give us even more feedback on that. Max Olson, ESPN, joins us on 365 Sports. Max, we'll get to the Pac-2 and also the Mountain West and all that, the merger, so to speak. But your thoughts, West Virginia got smoked by Penn State. Pittsburgh next, and your thoughts about, as Craig said, Neil Brown needs a good win.
Yeah, I think that's right. And, I think as we approach Big 12 play here, I think that I don't know that I see a ton of separation still in terms of like the top tier of the Big 12. I think it's exciting to have, obviously, tomorrow night's game, K-State, Arizona, to have Oklahoma State, Utah coming up. Like, we're going to have some big ones here early that set a tone. But I think that's fair. I think that's fair to say that, West Virginia Pitt is a big time rivalry game, and one that, I think that West Virginia, you want to send a message by getting that one done. And, I think the hot seat part's interesting because I do think that, he did a really nice job last year kind of relieving that pressure. And I don't think that it feels that way necessarily with Ren Baker now, but, you look at the Big 12 schedule these guys got, and it is very front loaded. Kansas, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Kansas State, Arizona. Like, that's as tough of a front half of a Big 12 schedule as anybody got this year. So, it's definitely time for West Virginia to start playing its best football.
Max, your thoughts on the Pac-2 expansion?
I went to bed at 10:30. So my initial thoughts were shock upon waking up. My initial thoughts were surprised for sure. But credit to Ross Dellinger and all the folks that reported that last night. I think that you kind of knew something was brewing there when the scheduling agreement, was kind of publicly put out there that they weren't going to do that going forward. I think for the 4 schools that get a spot in this Pac-2 or Pac-12 or whatever you want to call it, I think you can tell that they just feel like there's just better resources. I mean, there's still reputation with the brand. There's still the network. There's this money that they, I wouldn't call it a war chest necessarily, but they've got this money left over to help pay for this transition. I think it's a big deal for those 4 schools to have that status. And, I'm very curious what the next steps look like, for that league. And, certainly if they wanted to add more Mountain West schools at this time, they probably would have all been announced together, right? So I think you can tell that there's probably a little bit of an order of operations here of, okay, can you figure out something with Stanford and Cal? Maybe, probably not. Do you want to go poach some of the best of the American? Do you look at the Sun Belt at all? Interesting to see kind of strategically where these guys want to go from here.
Max, what was that like last weekend, seeing Matt Rule in Nebraska just beat up Colorado and make them like it? I know the second half, it was, not as fun as the first half, but it was still, it looked like quite the celebration in Lincoln, Nebraska. That was obviously a huge game for the program, and to win it was huge as well. And on the flip side, I mean, it feels like if you pull one more thread on Colorado, the whole thing is going to unravel just based on the last few days. But what did you walk away with thinking about that game?
Yeah, I mean, the environment was electric. As you'd expect. I think that was obviously a game that Nebraska's coaching staff and players had been working toward and working on throughout the offseason. I mean, I think you saw they were extremely prepared for Shedeur Sanders, extremely prepared for Colorado's offense and what they wanted to do to neutralize the weapons. And I think you saw, this Nebraska team has a really nasty defense. So I think they played to that strength. And Dylan Raiola didn't turn the ball over, which was, the name of the game, I think, in that one. Just so impressed by that Nebraska team kind of, getting Colorado to tap out there by halftime. I think it was a huge building block game for that program and a team that really believes that they're, not just like a top 25 team, but they think they've got a pretty damn good team. So interested to see where they go from here. I think the disheartening thing for Colorado. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I mean, the disheartening thing for Colorado is just it's the same old stuff. It's the same problems you saw a year ago in a lot of ways. And I'm not saying the offensive line can't get better, or anything like that. I'm not, it's not like this is all perilous and doomed. But I think that to not have any sort of run game to lean on, but then to also lean on it on 4th and 1s and get stuffed twice, to not be able to protect Shedeur Sanders, and certainly you saw. He still made some killer throws, and I was still impressed by some of the plays he made. but certainly he didn't have a lot of trust in the protection he was getting. And, I think, defensively solid, certainly a solid second half for them as the Russians kind of tried to run out the clock. But yeah, I think for Colorado, it doesn't look super different than the challenges they faced a year ago.
Max, by the way, you've gone to Memorial Stadium probably dozens of times in your life to cover games and also to go. Craig, Jennifer, Daniel, daughter and son-in-law, and I are going to Lincoln next Friday. We're going to go and we're going to watch the game against Illinois. This is schedule opened up. I'm finally going to Lincoln.
All right. Are you just like, how fired up are you? This has got to be like, you wouldn't call it bucket list because you've been there before, but that's got to be pretty special.
I think it is.
This is it.
I've never been there.
I've watched them like probably 20 different places in my lifetime, from national championship games to losses to teams or wins against conference teams or non-conference games and bowl games. I've never been there. And
You've never been?
I was born in Omaha. Matt Rule said he would never come on our show again unless I made a trip to Lincoln. So it all worked out. A high school game on Thursday. Baylor's on the road. He's going to take care of us, and we're on our way up there on Friday of next week.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I mean, you could have bought in a little sooner, but this is a good moment to. This is definitely a good moment to hop on the bandwagon. That's for sure.
Max. Throughout I've grown up as a Cowboys fan. Like throughout my life, we went to see the Cowboys at different times, but then I got to start covering them when Smokey, and I started working together, and I feel like I'm covering the band after they all went to rehab.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what he'll feel like going to Lincoln now because the 90s was the time. But Zach Gelb told us yesterday he's got to get a Runza. There's a steakhouse he's got to go to. Anything else that Smokey and Craig have to do while they're in Lincoln next week?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm taking you guys out for a beer. There's no question about that. But
right.
I mean, I think I'm excited for you to see, that area. The tailgating and just the crowd, because it was a night kick last week. Pretty insane, just the way people turned out, and were out drinking and hanging out before that game. So I think you're going to have a good. Is it what's the kickoff time for this one?
It's 7:00 against Illinois. Yeah.
Perfect.
And it's
okay,
a big
so you got all day
game.
to hang out and get. Yeah, it's same deal. Like you're gonna have a great time, hanging out, and we'll find you. You got to get a Runza. You got to get a little Valentino's pizza. But yeah, we're gonna get you everything you need to feel like a Nebraskan.
I will let you know. Your thoughts? Texas hammered Michigan in Ann Arbor, made it look easy and made them like it. Is that how good Texas is? And I think they're that good, or also how much that also Michigan on top of that has slipped?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of tapping out, I mean, gosh, that was an unbelievable performance by Texas up in Ann Arbor. And I just think it speaks to what Texas has got. I do. I think that there's still, it's easy to say, okay, well, Michigan lost all these NFL draft picks and they lost the quarterback and they have a new coaching staff and, why wouldn't they look like this and stuff? But there's still some real serious NFL talent on that team, and certainly Sharon Moore has shown he's a big game kind of head coach. Of course, it's easy to kind of just fixate on the quarterback situation there, but man, I just thought it was an unbelievably strong showing by Texas. But obviously in those big games, you kind of see Sark in his bag as a play caller, and I'm sure they saved a lot of good stuff for that. But I think you saw and this is something that we're probably all guilty of. It's kind of, you kind of want instant results, and it's hard to have patience sometimes and hard to wait for development and stuff. But I think you saw the development of Quinn Ewers. And I know that this kid a lot has been asked of him as soon as he got to college and as soon as he got to Texas. But I think you saw Quinn Ewers in year 3 at Texas, and it just looks different. It just looks a lot better. And I think that there's a confidence there for that whole team that starts with him. And man, they are just offensive line, defensive line. You saw they truly have built one of the more physical teams in the country. So even with some of the pieces they've lost, man, I think that team is really built for a deep run this year.
Max, I'm curious your thoughts on a couple of these assistant coach hires that have worked out so well. I think offensive hire of the offseason's got to be Andy Kolonicki at Penn State. Heck, they had to win a game on offense against Bowling Green last week, and they did. And then D'Anton Lynn at USC has changed my opinion about that team completely.
100%. I thought that LSU game, watching the way that those guys, and like it's easy to again, I cover the personnel side of this a lot, and so you say, okay, well they added this, and this. That wasn't the deal for USC this year. I think USC's defense. I mean, they added some solid veterans that helped, but those guys are playing different on defense. Those guys are tackling. Those guys are, collectively getting to the ball, and they're not. You're still going to make mistakes, but you can just see they're just so much better coached, and that's not. I'm not trying to knock Alex Grinch there necessarily. I think it takes a buy-in from everybody to get these things better. But I think you saw the difference there for sure, and it made me look at USC really differently, the way they were able to outlast LSU in that game. So very curious to see can that be what we expect from them week to week? Are they going to be inconsistent? But no, I agree with you. I think that the tackling and the speed and the confidence they played with was different. Finally, after years of talking about it, and yeah, Andy Kotelnicki, you're not going to find a bigger fan out there than me of that guy. I mean, I think he's in the time I've spent around him in that program at Kansas, he's the real deal, and I'm not surprised that he's made a profound difference very quickly at Penn State. And I think you watch them play, you're seeing they are letting him call his game, and so I think that's very exciting to see. And again, a Penn State team that is disappointed in recent years, but has always kind of been in the playoff hunt. We'll see defensively. I think they've got some real NFL talent, but I think that he gives you some belief that they may actually live up to potential this year.
I feel like I'm hyping this game up like it's Ohio State or Michigan, but I'm just really interested. What is your interest level tonight in Texas State and G.J. Kinney, Jordan McLeod playing host to 2-0 Arizona State Sun Devils?
Arizona State's been really pretty sneaky impressive so far with the way that they've played. I think you're seeing a team that is much improved, and look, a lot of that is flipping the roster with the portal. They've been as aggressive as anybody with that, but I think you're seeing a difference in year two. And I think I've been impressed by them so far, just in the way they've played in 2 weeks. And Texas State is one of the more fun teams to watch in the country, and just have so many offensive weapons. And certainly it looks like Jordan McLeod has fit in pretty well there. So I think it's a great matchup. And it's funny, you wouldn't have said this yesterday, but I guess if you're Texas State, you're kind of excited for a spotlight game with these spots opening up in the pack now, huh?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that I saw something that mentioned they could be looking towards Texas, whether it's Texas State, UTSA, who Texas State spanked, North Texas, up in the DFW area. Who knows? So there is that possibility. And they're a fun and exciting team to watch. I was stunned at how one-sided that game was. Max, let's now look at where we are early in the year. Do you like to look at the images when they say, okay, if this was this week in the college football playoff, these would be the 12 teams? Are you locked into that yet, or is it still too early for you?
At ESPN, we're kind of doing it every week. We're kind of asked to come up with your updated top 12 or your updated bracket of how you project it for this week. And I think it's been an interesting exercise to try to figure that out on Saturday nights of kind of what you would do with it. Because I mean, certainly for me, it's been pretty steady in terms of, 1, 2, 3 being Georgia, Ohio State, Miami. And then 4, you can kind of talk yourself into a few different teams for the Big 12. I think I had Iowa State this week, just coming off the strength of the win over Iowa. But it's easy to just sort of then go slot in a ton of Big Ten and the SEC schools there. I do kind of wonder, I think the Big 12 is strong enough this year that if they don't beat each other up too much, I can see the Big 12 getting one more team in here, getting the 11th seed, and maybe that takes the conference title game upset. I don't know. But I can see it for the way the Big 12 is setting up right now. It's hard to see with the ACC, that league spitting out a second team that's worthy of being in the playoff, but obviously it's super early. And then the G5 spot, feels super wide open right now. I know UNLV is hot with some people. I think I still had Boise in there, even though they lost to Oregon, because I just thought that was an extremely impressive performance the way they played. I'm sure there are plenty of people who say, hey, let's not do this now. It's too early to be obsessed with the playoff, but it is fun to kind of do the mental math here of who's in.
Max, thank you. Great to have you on. Great to see you. We'll see you next week. Well, I'll be in touch.
See you next week.
Yes, sir. Can't wait. Finally, Max Olson from ESPN, great college football writer, senior writer with us.